So, on to our panel discussion. I'm now delighted to welcome Professor Lord Robert Mair, Emeritus Professor of Civil Engineering and Director of Research at the University of Cambridge, and Keith Waller, who's the Programme Director of the Construction Innovation Hub. Welcome both. Robert, just as an introduction, Robert's a Fellow of the Royal Academy of Engineering, Fellow of the Royal Society, and he was President of the Institution of Civil Engineers in 2018. He was appointed as an independent cross-bencher in the House of Lords in 2015 and is a member of the House of Lords Select Committee on Science and Technology. Keith is the Construction Innovation Hub's Programme Director. He's a Fellow also of the Institution of Civil Engineers. And in 2010, Keith was seconded into government with Infrastructure UK, the predecessor to the Infrastructure and Projects Authority. His work in government led to the publication of the UK's first National Infrastructure Plan, the development of the Infrastructure Cost Review, and the IPA's Transforming Infrastructure Performance Programme, published in 2017. Welcome to you both. Thanks for joining. Robert, on the back of this report and what you've heard today, could you share any reflections on this work from perspectives in the industry?
Thank you, Matt. Well, can I start by congratulating CIRIA and the authors, Tertia Janssen and Cam Middleton, for this excellent and timely guide, as well as being colleagues of the two authors at Cambridge. As you've said, I'm a member of the House of Lords Science and Technology Select Committee, and in 2018 we undertook an inquiry into off-site manufacture for construction. Our report can be viewed on the House of Lords Select Committee website. I'm just going to make a few very brief comments about that. We considered, of course, the potential benefits and the drawbacks of off-site manufacture, and we looked at what actions the construction sector needed to take to drive further use of off-site manufacture. We had 10 oral evidence sessions in which there were 27 witnesses. We had a call for evidence, and we received about 80 written submissions. There are links to all of those in the digital version of our report, and I commend those to you. In particular, we examined the barriers faced by the construction sector in using off-site manufacture. And many of those barriers, such as lack of collaboration, attitudes to risk, can only really be dealt with by the sector itself. And that, of course, led to the construction sector deal promoted by the Construction Leadership Council as part of the industrial strategy. And that's an important step. I think, as the CIRIA guide rightly states, off-site manufacture has the potential to substantially improve the construction industry. However, many of the benefits are perceived benefits without hard evidence to back these up. And there is minimal objective evidence-based research to demonstrate these benefits in a quantitative and consistent manner. And that, of course, is where the CIRIA guide comes in. The authors are to be congratulated for tackling the very important issue, for trying to actually get a consistent methodology. And I feel sure that this excellent guide and its proposed methodology will be used by the industry for many years to come. So I congratulate the authors.
Thanks, Robert. Keith, it'd be interesting to see your perspective on the report and any comment on how it might shape the way forward for the development of modern methods.
Thank you for the question. So I think it's, as Robert says, it's an interesting study, and I think it reinforces many of the difficulties we're aware of for clients to make informed choices and for industry to build a case to invest in developing new capability, new products, new ways of working. And this lack of data, along with many other factors, can be help explain why the industry perhaps has been challenged in how it moves forward, how it transforms, how it adopts modern ways of working. But I think it's worth being clear that offsite is not always the answer. It's certainly not a means to its own end. But it's difficult to imagine, having said that, that if we are looking to decarbonise our sector, we're looking to drive towards net zero, we're looking to be more productive, have greater social impact, it's difficult to imagine how we can achieve that without adopting a much more modern approach to delivery. So without digitally enabled, smart, censored, manufactured solutions, we're not going to get to deliver the ambitions and the transformation the sectors need. In fact, since this report was published, we've moved on quite a lot in this space already in working out how we assess and move forward on this basis. And that's why the Hub programme, the Construction Innovation Hub, is focusing not just on developing some of those technical solutions that delivered manufactured output, digital solutions, smart operation of our infrastructure, but the enabling framework which will allow those choices to be made to drive that transformation. And I draw your attention in particular to the work that we've been doing on our value framework. And if you look at the recently published Roadmap to Recovery for the CLC, that is explicitly referenced as an area we're going to develop and move forward and embed. We're already working with Department for Transport and many of their arm's length bodies. We're working with the Department for Education and a number of other government departments, including centrally, to work out how we can make informed choices that aren't focusing on how cheap can we build, but thinking about whole life performance, how it supports productive growth in the economy, how we get the right commercial and business cases written and decided that support that transformation. It's about thinking of value, not cost. We want value-based decisions on whole life performance, not cost-based decisions on capital projects. So there's a huge focus that we're looking at, not just in our technical program, but how we measure, assess, and benchmark value throughout the whole life. So we're not interested in cheap, we're interested in driving greater value and supporting the ambition from the built environment to have greater social impact, reduce our environmental impact, and support some of the broader economic activities that we'll need, particularly in a post-COVID world. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, things are definitely changing. Okay, can I now invite Joe, Tertia, Cam and Kieran back to the panel? I'll drop off the video so that we don't overfill the screen, and that will give me the chance to field some of the questions. There's some good questions coming through. Right, so following up on your comment, Robert, about the House of Lords Select Committee report, could you give us a bit of an update on insights as to how the outcomes and recommendations of that report have been received and implemented, and how this methodology could be used to support any changes?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I think it's true to say that the report we produced was well received by government. The government had, just about the same time as we produced our report, announced what they called a presumption in favour of off-site manufacture. These are quite key words, and they were in effect saying that they were wanting to show a strong commitment to investing in off-site manufacture. And there were 5 government departments that were involved in that: transport, education, health, defence and justice. And I think the real question that we have asked ourselves is, what teeth is being provided by the government to actually back that up, the presumption in favour. And we in fact recommended in our report that government should develop and publish a series of key performance indicators against which the success of the presumption in favour could be assessed. So in other words, when tenders were being received, the government departments in question should actually ask very positively the question, well, has off-site manufacture been considered in the offer, and if not, why not? And I think the jury is still out at this point as to how much that's really happening. Keith, you might want to make a comment about that as well.
I think the jury is very much out, but what we're seeing with a number of government departments and a number of the arm's length bodies is perhaps an increased ambition to do that. I think Robert, Budget 2017 had said that they would adopt a presumption in favour of offsite by the end of 2019. As far as I'm concerned, I think we've passed that point, and it's not always clear exactly how they're considering that. We are seeing some departments and some agencies really looking at it properly and looking to work about not just doing offsite in terms of offsite construction, but looking to embed proper manufacturing process, proper consideration of whole life performance, rather than just doing what many clients have done in the past, which is by pimped up park homes. We need to move into doing proper things that deliver better social impact, reduce our environmental impact. But government departments do move at different paces. They do have existing frameworks that need to run their course. But I would be very surprised if government and the IPA and the Treasury, when we move into a spending round and a budget this year, aren't looking to put a bit more conditionality on how government spends its investment portfolio in projects, very much in line with the recommendation that Robert and his team made, because that we need to have a bit of teeth behind it rather than just a bit of goodwill. So I really support something that enables us to measure and allow people to make informed choices and hold them to account when they don't.
Thanks, Keith. Just a quick one on that. On Monday, the Construction Leadership Council published a roadmap to recovery for UK construction sector. Obviously, we're in difficult times. How do you think this methodology is going to dovetail with the industry recovery plan?
Well, I think the recovery plan, you'll see there's a lot of focus on digital, a lot of focus on manufacturing in terms of how government and industry can work forward. What they did explicitly mention in there was the value framework that we're developing. And of course, some of the elements of this report will feed into parts of that methodology. But of course, we're looking at how we use that value framework throughout the whole investment life cycle, from the moment it becomes a policy idea, through business cases, through optioneering, through procurement, through design, through delivery, through operation and end of life. So having a value framework and a way of measuring against social impact, environmental impact, economic impact. So we're not just thinking about the project, but something Robert's been talking about for a long time, really focusing on whole life performance, understanding the existing built environment and how assets are performing, rather than a rush to build new things the whole time. So having that value framework embedded explicitly in the sector recovery plan, and a plan to embed those principles that we're developing through the hub into the way we're building and assessing projects and programs in the future is really important.
Okay, thanks for that. Right, Alex Hughes asked, is this methodology appropriate for housing? Tertia, I think it spans across the industries. Is that correct? Yes.
Thanks, Matt. So, as I said in the presentation, methodology hasn't been developed to be specific only to schools projects. It's just that we use schools projects to test them out. We wanted it to be generic, and we believe that if you had to take a housing project, these metrics could be used on housing projects as well. It might just be that if you were looking at housing projects, there would be additional aspects that you'd want to include and additional ways of looking at projects. So, for example, you'd have to add aspects in the project descriptor to look at, is the housing project, is it an estate development, is it flats or terraced housing, that kind of thing, to be able to compare your projects better. So yes, it should be applicable to housing.
Great, thanks. And there's one end from Richard Sykes. How much focus of the report is on environmental management and sustainability? He's commented on the lack of data in this sector. So how much weighting is the weighting? Is the weighting applied, or is the metric just there and the weighting can be tailored according to whatever the business driver is? That's my understanding.
Exactly that, Matt. There's no weightings applied in the methodology itself. Weightings can be applied by specific project teams depending on what they believe is valuable and what they believe is important in the report. And there are certain environmental metrics in there that we have included in the report. But I do believe that this is one area that could be branched out to include additional aspects. So we've got the very traditional carbon, energy, water usage on construction projects listed in our report as metrics to use, but this could be broadened out and include aspects such as the material use, the type of material, is it recyclable, is it recycled, yeah, that kind of thing. So yeah, they are there in the report.
Okay, I've got one here. Which metrics would be most valuable to have data on for understanding the benefits of offsite construction? And are there other metrics not addressed in the report that you believe should be included in the methodology? I think that would be good for Joe. You've used the methodology, so which ones did you think were the most valuable, and were there others that you thought should be there?
Well, just to clarify, we haven't used the methodology in anger. It's just a recommendation that we've made to both DFT and Network Rail. I can't comment in terms of offsite construction specifically, but I was very impressed by the social value aspects, particularly if you're working in a government environment. I think you have to justify your case to the public, and it very much gives the opportunity to do that. I think I mentioned in my own presentation that I think if we were to implement it within Network Rail, I would look for some metrics that are very closely aligned to our operational objectives too. So I can't comment on anything with any background of having run the model, but I see the potential in doing so and the flexibility for it to be whatever you need it to be.
Thanks. One from Janet Dunnett. I'll cut to the chase. Does the project have links to or plans to work with government organisations to make this happen? Cam, I think you're probably best placed to answer that one.
Thanks, Matt. And yes, absolutely. And in fact, the presence of Keith here and Lord Mair is an indication that throughout the government there's an interest in this work, and we are closely working through, for example, the Centre for Digital Britain, Centre for Smart Infrastructure and Construction in Cambridge, and through that to the Construction Innovation Hub. And we've already had some discussions on how we take this forward, because this is not a standalone bit of academic work that can just go out and be pushed out to others. This is actually being pulled by the industry, who formed, as Tertia said, closely using the metrics that are already being adopted. But really we've done two things. One, identify where there's inconsistency and suggest how we can tweak them to get consistency so that we can compare like with like. And secondly, identify the gaps in the areas particularly referred to by Joe, where we talk about the sustainability, we talk about the wider societal benefits, but we haven't really come to grips with the how do we quantify or measure them in an objective, consistent manner so we can compare between, so government and industry leaders are able to make those investment decisions. So simple answer is yes, absolutely critical.
And of course, Cam, just following up on that, that's exactly what's in our value framework. We have social capital, we have human capital, financial capital, natural capital, manufactured capital. So we have metrics and measures for all of those things that consider not just the capital phase, but the operational phase. And that's what we're developing. And they're the conversations we're having with government as a framework for which informed choices can be made and tailored choices to suit the particular needs of the individual project, the individual region, the needs of the user. All of this thing is providing a framework where people can make choices to meet their needs, but working within an ecosystem that doesn't allow them to say, I don't care about the environment, I don't care about social impact, I only care about how cheap I can buy it. We're trying to get that balanced scorecard for investment that runs through the whole investment lifecycle. Very happy to sort of follow up further with you, Cam, on that. I do apologize, I've got a CLC meeting now, so I'm going to have to dial off and say thank you to everyone and come back in and follow up with you later. But thank you very much to everyone.
Thanks, Keith. Right, we've got a couple of minutes left, but I've got one here from Michael Steck, and he originally addressed this to Cam, but actually I think, and then he sort of said, oh, didn't realise Tertia was there. So Tertia, would you suggest that the metrics in the report should be applied directly to early stage optioneering when deciding to convert a traditional in situ build into one that incorporates offsite? And are there any limits to how that would be done?
It's quite difficult when you're doing options appraisals to compare the two using this framework, because your outcomes are hypothetical. And when you're doing options appraisal, so you don't know, it's based on your own judgment and your own engineering expertise and past experience about what you think the outcomes would be if you applied this particular methodology and compared it to another. So I don't think that that's where the benefit or the value of this framework or this methodology lies. What we really want to establish with this methodology is evidence of performance on projects, so that you will be able to use these metrics to forecast project performance using whatever information you have about a project. But you would be limited then to looking at things that are, you wouldn't be able to look at the whole life necessarily because you don't have information on that. So yeah, it could be used for that, but I don't think that's where the value lies.
Okay, thanks. Well, sorry folks, we're virtually out of time. There's one final question which came from Cara Parrott, which is why is it important to have a robust evidence base of the performance of offsite construction? And if it's okay with the panel, I'd like to pick that one up and give a very short answer. And the simple short answer is that we haven't proven that offsite construction has a benefit. We've talked about it for a long time. We know that in sectors like hotels and rapid developments like schools and hospitals, fast food restaurants, forecourts, supermarkets, there are benefits. And the measures that are contained within the methodology will have different weightings into different sectors. So the evidence base is driven by the metrics, but it's also driven by what the business drivers are in each of those sectors. And that's why this report is important, because it gives us a level playing field of different metrics. So we are, hopefully that answers that question for Cara. Thanks to everybody who's joined us today for the webinar. Thanks to our speakers, Robert, Keith, Joanne, Tertia, Campbell, Kieran, thanks for sharing your knowledge and expertise. There are lots of questions, and the team at CIRIA and the Laing O'Rourke Centre will follow up with written answers to all of the outstanding questions for the attendees. I'd like to remind you that the guide is free to download from the CIRIA bookstore. The details are on screen, and we'll email that link to all of the attendees. So thank you very much for your time today. Hopefully that was informative. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.